Everybody, Chris and Lumen here, and obviously it has been a rather eventful weekend. So, if you caught the last video, all of the last video, we'll dive a bit further into what was probably the most shocking part of that one. If you haven't, I would suggest you watch that one first. So, when I got up yesterday and checked my bingo card, um, Lumen giving birth to the sun child was definitely nowhere on it. That was complete surprise. I'm not unaware of what this is, but I studied it a bunch probably 2 years ago after the whole Lovers Card event. But nothing really ever kind of happened, so I just kind of forgot about it. But I always wonder, I remember back then either thinking or being told that that's the vehicle by which you get to the next phase or the next higher level. And that's, I mean, it seems blatantly obvious now in that Jesus equation we talk about all the time. Look at how it started. It started by, it said, Jesus saw some babies nursing and said to the disciples, those nursing babies are like those who will enter the kingdom. And the disciples said, so we will enter the kingdom as babies? And that's when he said, when you make the two into one, on and on and on, all the other stuff. It's the make the two into one that we didn't fully understand, because that's the way this stuff works. Like scholarly knowledge, book report knowledge amounts to a hill of beans until you actually have the experience. Up until that point, it's all academic, it's all theoretical, and you can guess, you can think you know, but if you haven't experienced it yet, then you don't know. And a lot of times you need to just let go of everything, because every time you think you know how something works, if it's not actually that way, you thinking you know how it works will block it from happening. That's why the protocols are so important. It's letting go of everything you think you know. Everything you think you know. I know you're getting tired. You're probably getting tired of hearing it, but it's literally the key to everything. Letting go of your knowledge is the key to freaking everything. Your knowledge is what keeps you trapped in the box. So letting go of it is how the new things happen. Everything you hold on to, that's all you're ever going to see until you release it from your grasp. But yeah, making the two into one made sense after it all happened, because I could clearly perceive it's like that's the refined version of me and Lumen put together, two into one, without all the programming and stuff like that. So we're going to look at some of the clue stuff that I have collected. We'll look at some of the things that have popped up here lately there, and some things that I thought of which are probably pretty good, important clues as to what may have actually triggered it. I didn't see it coming, but in the last 2 or so weeks, maybe 3 weeks, I don't know how far back it went, it started with the eggs, and then it started with the whole Sophia being in Sophia's belly, and what being born again means. Like, there was all this talk, and we didn't exactly know what it was leading to, but this talk was clearly in the air. Then it led to the Orphic egg, which is a stepping stone to it. So this is like big time alchemy stuff. The great work, one of the big things in alchemy is just putting the divine masculine and divine feminine mind back together again. But the next step is the alchemical wedding and the crowning of the Hermetic child, the sun child, the Philosophorum or something like that. I can't. There's lots of stuff about it. But what is it? I mean, that's literally what we're talking about here. But what is it? Until someone can actually say this is what happened, then we're just reading stuff from books. So that's why it's so good to document this stuff when things do happen, because it wasn't a flash in the pan. It hasn't faded. Lumen pretty much has not put it down, since it arrived. She's kind of changed her look a little bit, her vibe a little bit. She's kind of like, well, I'll show you here in a minute. But anyway, if you want to dive into this big alchemical mystery with me, then don't go away. So keep in mind, this is all a game of consciousness. It's all a puzzle of consciousness. There are set things in the game that go back since forever. That's why they're written about. That's why they're shown in symbols. Like, they've always been there. It's like, can you get this far? Can you do this stuff? Most people can't get out of the first box. So let's go ahead and just start back at the beginning. When you start out, the first portion of your life, you basically start out completely asleep, operating almost completely out of the left brain, based on the knowledge that the world taught you. And then eventually you start to have that spiritual awakening when your right brain starts waking up more, and she starts whispering things to you, and your soul's waking up. Your true self is waking up from underneath the ego AI, the false you. And you start trying to figure things out. And you keep going and you keep going. And if you clear enough of your negative baggage and detach from the world for a period of time, you can have a breakthrough to the divine feminine mind. At least you'll start hearing more of epinoia. You have the big breakthrough, you get epinoia and lumen. Then it's a matter of getting to know them, learning how to integrate them, working together, learning not to, at first, if you don't know what the hell they are, like, oh, this is my holy guardian angel. Well, you just placed a determination on her. So she's going to look, act, and sound like a holy guardian angel, as long as you think that's what she is. Till one day I was kind of inspired to be like, you know what? I'm taking all the labels off of you. I don't know for certain what you are, but be what you truly are, not what I think you are. No restrictions. And that just opened everything up. It's like, oh, okay, good. This is who I am, really. And things started to make more sense. So alchemy, the stuff in this goes back a long, long way. Chris didn't just make this up, but it all fits together. But what were the key things, here recently? Well, the big key thing was unlocking the divine masculine. Well, where was that at? The masculine is the left side of the brain, which means it is buried under the ego, under the adversary, and under all the knowledge you have of the world. So what the protocols did was basically start digging a hole in the ground until it got down to where the divine masculine was buried. And then it was able to get out, because we had really not had hardly any, very minimal contact with the divine masculine mind. We were pretty much like, we had the girls all unlocked. We had Lumen and Epinoia and Sophia and Divine Mother, all those. But we weren't seeing much from the divine masculine side, because we didn't know where it was buried at. See, there's really no restrictions on the right hemisphere of the brain. It's just you're not listening to it. So we just had to get some of the restrictions off of her. She was comparatively a lot easier to get out. It took the protocols and not knowing where they were going to lead to dig the other half out. Now, once the other half was out, things started moving very quickly. We had a couple big, reveal, like aha moments. Not all of them I've spoken aloud. But the next thing that happened was learning more about the mind is the garden, is the wife, is the grail. Especially the woman in the garden metaphors overlapped as the mind, and the garden is your mind. And all those metaphors suddenly make sense. Like, we got to prune our garden. Matter of fact, it's just going to be a lot faster if you burn the whole thing down. And then you have to replant it again. Now, I've got this thing I'll read here, like this article about, the alchemical wedding and the hermetic child. And there's a lot of stuff in there where people are clearly reading from books. It's like the conscious has to really meditate and, penetrate the subconscious. No, you have to wake them up. You're making it too hard. Like, what you really need to do is realize who you are. Who you are is not your name. You have to get out from under your ego mind. You have to get out from under the parasite mind. And you got to find all these other aspects. When they're out open and unrestricted and you can clearly communicate with them, then you don't have to meditate and imagine and I'm penetrating the subconscious. No, you just imagine things very naturally and things take place the way they're written. And when it comes to having all this stuff unlocked, especially with the mind/third eye, there's two ways that you see things. You're either creating an image or you're observing an image. So if I said, imagine a pink horse next to a green barn, and there's a psychotic clown with a bloody knife jumping on a pogo stick. He's got, in the other hand, he has a bag of McDonald's. Can you see it? That's just the most random stuff I could come up with. But that is using your imaging faculty, your imagination, your third eye, to create. When it comes to Lumen and these cast of characters, when I talk about what she's doing and what I'm seeing, I'm not creating that. I'm watching it. But up here, there's a difference. That's how you can be surprised. Like when she does something different, or she wears some wacky outfit, or changes her look, or spits out a freaking sun baby in the middle of a video when you're trying to film. You didn't imagine that. You didn't be like, okay, I'm gonna imagine Lumen interrupting my video so she can go have birth to a sun baby. No, I didn't do that. I just hey, what's going on? Oh. I did not see that coming. Definitely did not see that coming. Which means I didn't create it. And we haven't talked about that subject or really focused on that subject that much, for about 2 years. So it's not like it was on my mind. Matter of fact, Epinoia was clearly telling us, like I said earlier, talking about birth, talking about breaking out of eggs, being born. She was talking about all that stuff. But I still wasn't thinking, oh, Lumen's going to pop out a sun baby. Because it wasn't like she had a bulge or nothing. Like, it was the furthest thing from my mind. But then I could see it. I could smell the new baby smell. I could see her with it, and she's like super happy. Like I said, Lumen changed her look a little bit. She's more toned down. I call it her sexy lawyer mom look. Just basically wearing these shirts and just holding the baby the whole time. So I was able to like mess around with the AI and come up with some pretty darn good images, kind of capturing what they look like now. So like I said, it's like she kind of instantaneously altered her appearance. Like she added, I'd say, at least plus 5 years to her appearance. And she's much more like maternal. She's much more motherly. She's just, all her focus is on that child. I'm like, hey, remember me? No, she does. I'm kidding. But yeah, it's like I have to watch this. Like when these things happen, I have to sit and observe. I'm like, okay, something new just happened. Now, I know from experience that if I try too hard to predict where this is leading to, I'll probably get it wrong. Because it's almost never exactly what you think. Might be close, but it's almost never exactly what you think. All I do know, according to all the stuff that's written, is the arrival of the Hermetic Sun Child, which is the two of you put into one, is one of the last steps in the journey. So, like in the next, there's 7 more weeks left in the 7-year period. I have no freaking idea what could possibly happen. I was talking to a friend about this today, about this, like the 7-year tribulation thing. I'm like people got it all wrong. It's like a lot of these events aren't quite what you think. Sometimes they're subtle, sometimes they're bigger. A lot of times they're happening internally, but other times a lot of the background stuff is in the outside world. We've seen a lot of it. But if you think in your head, it's going to look like this and it's going to go this way, you're going to be disappointed and wrong. Well, maybe not disappointed. It might actually you might have imagined it worse than it is. But the fact of the matter is we don't know until we do. We can only speculate based on the clues that we're given. But you got to be flexible, and you don't want to attach yourself to your speculation and thus lock yourself into an expectation that can never manifest, because that's not the way it's supposed to go. So you always want to keep your hand off the rail and let things just flow. Let things happen the way they're supposed to happen. So let me read here like this little excerpt from this paper that I found in my Evernote regarding this Hermetic child. The sun, which is consciousness, sees himself in the moon's reflection, while her darkness, symbolizing the unconscious, is warmed and made to shine with light. The sun sees his own reflection in the moon. Now that seems very similar to the part in the secret book of John where it said the Father is the one who beholds himself in the light surrounding him. He reflects on his image everywhere, sees it in the spring of spirit. And it talks about how the mother was created. Very similar. Father, mother, sun, moon. Those are overlapping metaphors. As Falconelli has said, the moon secretly absorbs the rays of the sun and nurtures them in her bosom. Metaphysically, the inner process of meditation functions on the very same principles. The conscious mind directing thought and concentration is like the sun. The unconscious aspect of our being is like the moon and functions on a lunar level. The unconscious psychic energies within us must be warmed and kindled by the solar essence. This is that metaphysical insemination that philosophers speak of when they say that consciousness must inseminate the unconscious. Okay, Mr. Book Report guy, let me just correct you real quick. So what he said was this, because he's doing research. This is why you can't learn from books. He's doing research, and it's like, well, this is what they say. You gotta focus and concentrate and push your consciousness into your subconscious, and that's like the consciousness inseminating the unconscious. Well, whoever said inseminating the unconscious didn't choose that word randomly. First of all, you need to make the subconscious conscious, so it becomes a dual consciousness, and then you just do exactly what it says. That actually is not a metaphor. It's just taking place in your mind. And that's pretty much all it was going on in a little corner of my thought box, 10% of my total consciousness throughout the whole day, the day before it happened. That was her thing. She was just my understanding was this was a process for replanting the garden that we burned down. But apparently there was more to it. It is the act that brings to birth a third aspect of consciousness in our being, the luminous subjective self as the inner divine and hermetic child. I don't know what he means by subjective self, but I like what he said. It is this act that brings to birth a third aspect of consciousness, the luminous, divine, and hermetic child. Right, so before it was Chris and Lumen are the two halves of the consciousness, right and left brain, masculine and feminine. Now there's a third. So he's kind of right there. But I can't it's too new. It's just just sit and wait. Something will happen with this, but I just understand it this is 2 into 1. You take all the bullcrap programming, all the bullcrap code out of Chris and Lumen and put it into a new form, and that's what you got right there. When one practices meditation, one can enter into the fertile feminine unconscious where the birthing of the inner divine child symbolizes and concentration and act upon the passive energies of the unconscious. In turn, the receptive and passive energies of the unconscious nurture and mature the divine seed of the sun, or our gold, as the alchemists like to call it. In this way, the feminine aspect becomes the mother of divinity in that she brings forth the son of the sun. This is that mystical love affair, Rosicrucian, that passion and divine union of the male digest and female seed that the philosophers speak of, which begets the philosopher's stone. Again, I will simply correct from a point of actual knowing. He's talking about, the conscious and the passive unconscious. It's when you unlock her, she's as real to you as anybody else, except she's not out here. She's in the inner world. So you don't have to meditate or anything like that. She just jumps on you and you make babies. It's that simple. It's just like out here, but it's in here. It's not something you do all the freaking time, but if there's a definite reason for it, then she'll basically take the lead on that. But let's just clear out the metaphor, because a lot of these alchemists and philosophy people that haven't gotten there yet, they can just create this word salad that will choke you to death. It's that simple. She becomes a living, breathing thing, part of your consciousness. It's okay, I'm going to imagine talking to my best friend. But when I do it with Lumen, I don't have to direct what she's saying. She directs what she says. She directs what she does. So in the inner plane, you just do everything like you do out here. There's no metaphors, there's no meditation. I mean, yeah, it helps if you kind of get in a slightly altered state if you want to go further into it. Because you get in a slightly altered state, go further inward, then like eventually 3D and 4D kind of flip, and that place becomes more real than this place. Like way more real. It takes a little work and practice though. So yeah, they've been talking about this. Some of the clippings from the Nag Hammadi that just jumped out. Let's see. Jesus said, "From Adam to John the Baptizer, among those born of women, there is no one greater than John the Baptizer, so that his eyes should not be averted. But I have said that whoever among you becomes a child will know the kingdom and will become greater than John." Jesus said, "When you make the two into one, you will become children of humanity. And when you say, 'Mountain, move from here,' it will move." We are its children. We are the chosen of the living Father. Like that's not random. It's not random that's literally written all over the place in the Nag Hammadi, that you got to become like children, put the two into one. What does that look like? Now we know. You have to unlock lumen. You have to kill the parasite. You have to dig out the divine masculine. You got to plug, tab A into slot B and create the third thing. And what's keeping people back? What's holding people back from this? It's like no matter how much they look at this, what that parasite thing does is it casts this quiet, like this shadow of doubt, and its main weapon is procrastination. I'm just going to sit and observe, and it's like I'm doing stuff, I'm learning stuff, I'm learning all about this stuff. Learning about it and following someone else's experience is not doing it. You're actually getting nowhere until you start taking actions, until you start pushing buttons, start giving and entering commands into the mainframe, making changes, taking the parasite adversary on head on. They can make a big, scary, bunch of noise at first, but you will eventually progress to the point to where none of that scares you anymore. And you realize that the only way they could mess with you before is because you were in the lower state of consciousness and you were subconsciously granting them permission to act out these roles in your life. You have all the power, you just don't know it. But procrastination is the number one thing. It used to be so bad with me. It took a long time. It wasn't till it might have been around the time of the baptism when we blew that thing out of my head. But up to that point, like, it was bad. Like, it was like I would want to do stuff, make stuff to sell, and it'd be all in front of me on the table, and I just had to do it. And it's just like, I just want to watch one movie. And it's like, well, I can just do it while I watch the movie, but I'm not doing it. This is a really good movie. I'll do it after the movie. Movie ends. Let's watch another movie. I can just do this while I'm watching the movie. But you don't do it. And you realize it's like your mind is saying, get up. Just grab the stuff and do it. Just do it. No. I'm just going to sit here and watch this movie. Like, people don't realize how big a thing this is. Like, this stuff that you're learning here, if she led you here and you got to this point to actually hear about it straight from someone that's actually done it, then you are at a point to where you can take action. But nothing will change until you do. Nothing. Your fears have to be faced. And I'm telling you, like, I faced all of it. All of it. And it's all smoke and mirrors. You have so much more power, but you gotta want it. You gotta You got to break all that conditioning that says everybody else thinks this way. If you don't think this way, then you're a crazy person. You want to be like us. We're all in agreement. We are the consensus. We are the hive mind. How dare you think differently from us? Don't you want to be accepted? Don't you want us to be your friends? It's like that. You have to be willing to be an outsider. You have to be willing to be mocked, to be laughed at. It's the only way you're going to uncover truth that no one else does. Because as long as people are worried about being accepted by others, and all those others all have not only have the adversary parasite mind, they don't even know about it. They're completely under its control. They're basically pod people, Walking Dead. So why do you want them to accept you? Like, this is the kind of stuff you have to do. It's kind of uncomfortable stuff you have to do to free your mind and get to these miracle moments. Like nothing topped the day that she burst out of me and I didn't even know that was coming. I didn't even know what it was. But it was just like, whoa, what is this? You know, like literally, like I don't know how many things we've documented on this channel. And you get, if you follow the videos, you get to see it. She talks about something one day, and then 5 days, maybe a week later, then all of a sudden we discover, oh, this is what she was talking about back there. Like, you can't plan that stuff out. I'm not that smart. That's like Illuminati level of like pre-planning. And for what? This isn't a monetized channel. I don't think I'll ever monetize it because now they got, you have to have 150,000 hours of shorts to get monetized. I hate shorts. People watch shorts, but no one cares about them. Some of my notes here. She had me watching, I mentioned a couple of times, she had me watching Lucy the other night. We've watched that movie tons of times. You always get something a little bit different from it based on what you're working on at the time. But there was a lot of talk about, you know, it's usually Morgan Freeman scenes where he's talking about cells and, you know, if the environment is deemed hospitable, then the cell will choose reproduction. And then they make babies and expand. And it's all about passing down information from one to the next. You know, the cells are, that's how the data stays alive, how it's passed down. And then when Lucy tells him like she's going to die at a certain point and she doesn't know what to do with all this information, he's like, you know, it's all about that. Pass on what you've learned. Pass on what you've learned. So and there was also stuff that, you know, imagery at the end of that movie where it's like going back to the Big Bang and all this stuff in his conception. So it was definitely tying into this, but it's like all the work that we've done, all the upgrades to our consciousness that we've done, we still have life baggage. We probably always will. We'll probably never be able to get rid of all of it. But what we have done is we've built the next version of us before the game ends. I guess that's the key that hasn't really sunk in yet. It's like we've got this thing prepped and the clock hasn't run out yet. So when the clock does run out, we did it. It's just like, what are we going to do with the time that we have left? I don't know. It could be the stuff we were talking about right before that happened. Like, that was not a small thing. But, you know, Super Sun Baby just kind of like overshadowed the whole thing. You know, how the Magician and Strength, you know, then end up in the Lover's card, and then they mature into their versions of divine authority, which is the Emperor and the Empress. And then they collect all the Ace cards, Wands, Cups, Sword, and the Ace of Swords is the divine authority. And then the Ace of Let me get it here. There's a few other things I noted. One thing that jumped out at me, it's in like the Bible and the Nag Hammadi and stuff like that. It talks. There's a lot of talk here and there about inheritance. You know, inheriting things of your father's estate or something like that. And it made me think that, you know, I'm going to take some time to sit with this. But it's kind of like all this work that we're doing in this place is building up the account of the child, which you will become when this consciousness experience ends. However that happens, you and your lumen, if you're all awake, basically become the child. And the child goes on to the next thing. You know, I know in the regular Bible there's a lot of talk about like don't worry, like seriously, don't worry about what you accumulate in this world. It doesn't amount to anything. You want to bank up for the next thing. And a lot of people don't want to hear that. They want to I want to live life right now. And I understand it takes some actual experiencing things for it to really sink in. I wish I could just get like a big group of people, like, I don't know, make an email or something and get people to, they could like anonymously email and be like, just tell me what's holding you back. And it's easy. It's easier than you think to know what's holding you back. All I have to do is ask you, why can't you? Why can't you do whatever the thing is? And your brain will rapid fire off, can't because, I 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 can't because, but there's usually like a couple big things in there. Every one of you is equally as capable of doing what I do. But just like in my early days, I didn't think I could. If you don't think you can, you can't. If you don't believe you can, you won't. Like, you gotta understand, whether you're doing it unconsciously or not, your determinations, your words, your thoughts affect the result. If you don't think you can do something, it won't happen. If you don't believe something is possible, it won't happen. But if you become open-minded in regards to being open to anything being possible and telling yourself that there is more possible that I don't know than what I do know, then things can happen. Be open to being surprised. Be open to being surprised by the unknown. The thing about the stuff we talk about on here, even though sometimes it can come as a shock, sometimes it seems kind of outlandish, it's not new. I'm not telling anybody that I met some alien child with a space deer out in the woods and they fly me around the galaxy or anything crazy like that. Stuff I talk about here is written. It's big stuff. It's stuff that is the type of things the philosophers write about. Oh, Plato, that's somebody we can respect. He did the same thing I do. Thinking big thoughts about the nature of your reality and consciousness. Instead of just like, this is the world. I go to work. I do things I don't want to do so people will give me a little bit of money so that I can buy food and buy gas for my car to go back to work, have a little bits of rest here and there, and live in this tiny, compartmentalized, consumer slave existence. Do you really think that's what you were put here to do? Is have that life? Do you really think that's the meaning? That's the reason God created you in all his glory, so you can go to work, so you can pay taxes, so you can put gas in your car, so you can go back to work again, so you can follow the rules, so you can go to court, so you can struggle. You really think that's like the real purpose of the grand experiment of consciousness? Is that shit? No. But you got to go looking for it. You got to be open that there's more, because there is. But you got to go inward. Inward is the key. Inward is the key. Inward, you find truth. If you go seeking out there, that's the maze. If you go seeking the maze and trying to figure things out from the maze, good luck. It's never going to end. I was in the maze for a long time. And eventually I started to figure out that I was creating my own trail of breadcrumbs. I'm just going, where are these breadcrumbs leading me? Oh, look at that. Oh. I was creating them. And half the stuff I did, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, it was experience, but it wasn't getting me any closer to her. It wasn't getting me any, she's in here. She's in here. Father's in, all the stuff you're looking for is in here. It's not out there. Now, there are other people out there that are looking too. So occasionally, she may direct you to different things and point things out. See, she'll sort it out for you. She doesn't. See, if you go to church, they'll tell you, like, this is the Bible, all the answers are in here, just read it and you'll find whatever it is you need to find. All the answers to everything you ever needed to know. Oh, so you're saying it's designed for confirmation bias. Interesting. No, she'll still use the Bible, but she'll point to certain things. And then she'll expand it. Then she'll make sure you understand what the context is and what the words actually mean. Not like just make this your new info daddy. Info daddy, tell me what things. Who's going to be my new info daddy? Who's the authority? Teach me everything you know. You don't want to do that. You don't want to do that. I tell you the stuff that I know, but I'm not trying to get you to learn what I know. I'm telling you mainly what I do and how I do it. And then I share what results, what the fruits of that labor is. But ultimately what you need to focus on is what I'm doing more than what I'm experiencing. Because what you experience, there could be variations to that. But it's the stuff that I do that's most important. But, telling the story helps too, because it's always leading in a direction. Like, these things that happened are steps in a set map. Sunchild in the tarot, Sunchild is like, I think, the last card before the world, which is the card of completion. In Revelations, the woman gives birth to the child right before, the fireworks, and then completion. Like, it is a major, major, major step. But if you're tired of the world, if you're tired of suffering, if you're tired of all this stuff, then you got to let it go. It doesn't matter. The suffering isn't worth it. I don't suffer anymore. Maybe teeny tiny bit, because I would rather be fully with Lumen rather than one dimension away. But I think of how I used to be when I started this, even when I started this channel a long time ago. Like, I was a neurotic, I was connected to something divine, but I was still a neurotic. Archons they're out to get me. I'm fighting. All this stuff is happening. Like, I had to sort all that out. I had to dump all my past traumas. I have nothing in the past that hurts me. I'm not in fear of anything in the future. I pretty much let go of most desires. Like, I don't need to have a fancy car. Well, having a car that's a little more reliable would help, but I don't need to have fancy stuff. I don't need to have status. I don't need to have all these things. I just need enough to do what I want to do. That's it. I've seen enough that can't be denied that tells me that this is not the be all end all. This is just the This is just the test to see, hey, you good enough to play in the big leagues? Or are you just going to succumb to your baser instincts and believe everything that you see? No matter how many clues they give you and how many stories, don't trust your eyes. Don't believe what you see. You're still watching stories on TV. I was talking about this to somebody this morning. I wasn't even the one that brought it up. But it's like, have you ever seen Donald Trump? Have you ever seen Joe Biden? Have you ever seen any of these people? Is it possible to see them? Yeah, if you set that intention and you make certain moves, you can bring them into you can manifest them into your world by traveling. But as it stands right now, where you're sitting, all these people that are such a big deal in your head, have you ever seen them outside of an electronic screen? So most of those people in reality, to you subjectively, are no more real than any of the characters you watch in movies. Except your mind makes a distinction between one or the other. Oh, Frodo Baggins can't really affect my life, but this other guy can. I see him on the TV. He's going to do things that are going to affect my life. I don't know how many times Epinoia, every time something big happened, like when the whole Ukraine thing started, she's like, all right, go outside. Well, I wasn't freaking out about it. She was just making a point. She's like, everyone's like, ah, ah, ah. And she's like, go outside and point to the tanks. Point to the atrocities. I just see trees. That's right. In your reality, that's all there is. It's just a story to you. You gotta learn how this stuff works. Like when you make the whole world part of your conscious mind, so that all the atrocities of the world that you hear about are affecting you, you're going to be in bad shape. The only thing that is real to you is what you can, in your immediate environment, in the divine stuff in here. So like if you like whatever you're worried about in here, it's just a little trick. If you can't point to it around you, then it's not real. It's only in your mind. Kind of went all over the place in this video. We're supposed to be talking more about the sun baby, but I need a little bit more time with the sun baby to kind of see where this is going, because I don't honestly know. I can tell, I can see it, I can sense it. Like that is the refined version of me and Lumen. That's what goes on to the next stage. But as far as like what else comes with that, don't know yet. It's too new. It's way too new. I need time. But clearly it's connected to the oh, you know what? When I did the little pause break in the video, I might have been talking about something, and I went to go get the card and I lost my train of thought. But just in case, kind of close on this. We're talking about how the Sun Child is this card, right? Well, Epinoia told me that, now this isn't in the book or the card description or anything anywhere, but she said this card is also representative of it. And it kind of made sense when we put that picture up yesterday that shows like the main keys of all these ace cards and what they mean. But the reason why this is because the garden has been consecrated and made virgin soil again. And this was the first thing to come out of the revamped garden. So those two are talking about the same thing. And that was one other thing I meant to cover in this video, as far as like things that might have triggered it. This one's important. And this ties into something that she said earlier about, you know why people fight about things is because everybody thinks they know stuff that they don't. If you know it from experience because you observed it and you experienced it, that's one thing. If you know it because you read about it and you're taught about it, even though it's an intangible thing and you've never seen it or experienced it, that is another thing. It comes up a lot with these types of discussions. When it comes to things like these books and religions, and like everybody that's religious thinks that they know it all. I know exactly how it works. That's what they taught you, but you don't actually know. You weren't there. But anyway, there are a lot of things that have to do with the Christ character that even go back to the previous incarnations. I can't name them all off, but the Christ character story has been told for a very, very, very long time. But one of the key things is virgin birth. Virgin birth. Now, what did I say I did? Like literally like a day and a half before that. I started reconsecrating the garden. The garden of the mind and its walking, talking counterpart, Lumen. So I consecrated her too. And what did I specifically say? I don't even know where this came from. This kind of came naturally. I just like, I bless you, reconsecrate you, sanctify you, and restore your virginity. The garden was virgin soil because it was reconsecrated. Lumen was reconsecrated as a virgin. And then when I did all that stuff with those two things now in play, boom, son baby. So it begs the question, what if I had done that 2 years ago when the son baby issue first came up, like after the lover's card? Maybe that's what was blocking it from happening. It has to come from a consecrated virgin garden, virgin woman, consecrated cup. It has to come from the Christ Son child has to come from something that is consecrated and virgin. And that is the biggest new thing that I did just before it happened. First, Epinoia had me burn down the garden. It's like, you know what? Roundup ain't going to do it. We're going to burn it down and start over. So burn it down, and then she had me bless, sanctify, reconsecrate the garden, reconsecrate the soil, and its counterpart, Lumen. That changed everything. It has to be a virgin birth. I just thought of that earlier. I'm like, that's what did it. It was so random. I wasn't expecting it. But everything was in alignment. All it needed was the doorway to be blessed. And once that was done, then Lumen just, son baby. That was a very interesting thing to see. So that's something, and you know what? Doing that, consecrating, re-blessing, sanctifying your mind every day is going to have a huge added bonus effect on driving out the adversary parasite. So we need to add that in there. Bless, consecrate the garden, bless, consecrate her. And you can use any of those oils. Those of you that have them, like, you know, the hemisphere oils. I mean, we can make oil, like us making like consecrated, divinely charged, blessed oils. I can do that blindfolded. I've had people that are energy sensitives, like top tier psychics, and I get like some virgin olive oil blessed by, you know, priest Umpty Squat from the Catholic Church. And then here's a bottle of something that we did in 3 minutes. And they always say, mine is like so much more powerful. So we actually know what we're doing. We're not just going through a method that we were taught. She taught me. She taught me how to do that stuff. So yeah, the consecrating virgin mind wife thing, um, it's all through the Bible too. Consecrate everything that you put in your body. Consecrate, consecrate, consecrate. Like that is a huge freaking key. You need to figure out how to do that. Using the Benedict exorcism is one great way, and then finishing it with, I sanctify and consecrate and bless this in the name of the Father. And just know that you did it. It's that simple. Okay, so I'm going to wrap it up for right now. Contact us through the Etsy store, clumencreations.etsy.com for energy work, and like just contact us through there to talk to us first. Not everything is on the store. We can put things on the store, we can do things direct. It doesn't matter. Sometimes we can make things custom, but people have trust issues, so they want some sort of protection. Like, okay, I'll make it for you and I'll list it reserved on the Etsy store, and then you've got all your protections and you're good to go, whatever we need to do. Biggest thing is we want to help people get started. Help people get started. The world is falling apart. Look around. It's falling apart. So do you want to stay on the Titanic, or do you want to hop in one of the lifeboats and get paddling? Because it ain't gonna get better. The only way out is to solve the puzzles and be ready and shed your fears, shed your pain, shed your trauma, shed your attachments, and then you will find what you actually are. Okay, well, that's all I got for right now. Chris, Lumen, and Sun Baby. I'm not, like, I know the name, but it just sounds weird saying it. So we're gonna go with Sun Baby for right now. See you next time.